Hello, and welcome back to the Lagging Off podcast. Sorry about last week. So you may have seen it from the announcement, and then again on my alt Twitter account. If you follow me over there, I was in the middle of recording an episode, and my power went out. There was like an unscheduled power outage. I finished recording it on my phone as a matter of pride. And then when the power came back on and I checked the file, it had been corrupted and it was not usable anymore. I was advised that I should be recording not in MP4, but in MPK or something like that. I am going to do that to make sure that doesn't happen again, because we have a surprising amount of power outages in our area. So this episode, which I'm going to do my best to recreate the first part of it, and who knows, maybe it'll be better on the second time, was my thoughts, tips, and things I wish I knew earlier about making your hobby your job. And the reason I want to talk about this now, or wanted to talk about it a week ago, was because, well, number one, obviously I have experience in the field, or in my field, within hobby jobs, within artistic, quote-unquote, jobs. And two, because I know a lot of people are really struggling to find just regular office jobs or even service jobs. So I've seen a lot of people talking about, kind of making jokes about how, like, I can't get a job anyway, so I might as well pursue my passion. And I think that's great. It's kind of, making the most out of the situation that you're in, especially when the job market is relatively unstable. So, most of you already know, but I am a full-time streamer, content creator, YouTuber. Was working really, really hard and putting out kind of maximum output during the pandemic, and I would say I've slowed down a lot just as my life has changed a bit. But I was able to kind of ramp up my career high enough so that I can dial it back and still make an income. So there's a few different concepts that I want to touch on, and those are going to be the external eye, the systematizing of joy and art, burnout, and motivation. Because motivation, all of these things, like within a regular structured job where you have a manager and you have employees and you have a place of work that is separate from your home, those things are kind of placed on you. You have someone else telling you what to do or giving you at least a guideline of what to do most of the time. When you work for yourself, you don't have that. When you have, you don't get performance reviews. You have to audit yourself. You have to manage everything yourself. You have to make decisions, and you have to place organization on yourself, which, if you're a creative person, creativity and organization doesn't always go hand in hand. That hasn't been my experience. Don't ask me what this side of my office looks like. I won't tell you. And it's funny that this episode was delayed because of an unexpected issue. This is something I didn't talk about in the initial episode, and it will be end up being kind of out of order in this episode. But I'll talk about it since I kind of encountered it last week. It's just setbacks when you experience unexpected issues or hurdles. In a work environment, there's usually a established protocol for dealing with it. There's a handbook. There's someone in charge, or someone who's, at least in theory, supposed to know more than you. When you work for yourself, when it's your own, kind of like the outpouring of your heart, that is your job, that is your work that you're putting out into the world. You don't have that. And it's all you, and it's all, your support system, whatever that is that you have, until you expand large enough to hire people. So as something that it's maybe a little bit unhinged, but has helped me mentally process some of this stuff, is I feel like I'm somewhat severed. So I have me, Dara, who I've been my entire life, Dara. I'm the CEO of my company, and Dish is a section of me. is a part of me, but isn't the whole. She is my employee. So if I run into an issue that stresses me out so bad, I kind of mentally, I mentally envision two people. And I kind of imagine myself in both roles. Like if I was the CEO and this was my employee dealing with this issue, what would I advise? And then vice versa. If I was the employee responsible for clocking in, dealing with this issue for my manager, and then clocking out and leaving it behind, what would I do? Like what if my emotions were not invested in this issue, which is kind of one of the nicer parts of dealing with working in an office, is when a company encounters an issue, it's only slightly your problem. It's your problem as much as it pertains to your job and your livelihood. But when it's your own business, it's like your heart is in it, you know? And especially since content creation is kind of essential to most industries, your heart and your soul is like tethered to the waves of what could be and what could go wrong and what could go great. So the highs are high and the lows are really low. So I think one of the biggest principles I would say, and I'm pretty sure I talk about this in the foam section of this episode, which I know this is a little bootleg, but I'd rather have it bootleg than to not have it at all, is, are you able to, can you find a way to emotionally remove yourself, at least for a time, from an issue and create a dynamic within yourself? Now that may not work for everyone. It works for me. It helps me be more rational. It helps me be more realistic because, you know, when I'm just trying to handle everything myself, I made work from when I wake up till the moment I go to bed, and my mind might never turn off. But if I can see myself as the CEO and the employee and basically command myself to only work on this from, you know, the equivalent of around 8 hours in a day, and then shut off my PC and leave it behind and enjoy, you know, the rest of my life, that has helped me keep a level head in a lot of stressful situations, which, yeah, you expect things to be rosy. And I'm telling you, like, you might anticipate some problems, but a lot of the problems that you will encounter will be things that you never expected. And each one of those issues will be a test of your resolve, a test of your principles. And, you know, are you a go-getter? Can you get it done in good situations and in bad? So I'm going to let the phone version of me from last week take this away. There's a butterfly flying outside my window. That's so great. And I hope that this will be helpful in maybe just giving you some guidelines or giving you some things to think about while you're considering how you're going to make a living. Whether it be how you're going to make a living full-time or how you're going to make some money on the side while you're a student or, you know, while you're trying to find a job. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You know what? This episode is better because I spent the first 10 or 15 minutes kind of complaining in the way of telling funny stories about all the bad things that had happened to me that day. We don't need that. Maybe I just needed to let that out and let that file die. So maybe this is for the best. Enjoy. Thank you for watching. You guys are the best. Take it away. My power just went out. Yes, yeah. And until it comes back on, I have no idea if my first half of this podcast even recorded or if the file got corrupted when the PC went down. But at this point, this is a matter of pride. This is a matter of stubbornness. I'm going to finish this podcast episode, and nothing is going to stop me, even if I have to run my phone battery down to 0%. Okay, anyway, proceeding as usual. The external eye, the critic. So, this is something that you don't necessarily deal with until you start trying to monetize your skill, your ability, especially if you're using social media, which I would argue for most people
and in most industries, social media is part of the job. It is impossible to market. It is very hard to market unless you're working in a very, very local scope. Or, there's some industry exceptions, of course. I can't cover everything. But in my experience, social media and knowing how to utilize it to promote yourself and to get in front of to get in front of potential buyers, that is essential. So the external eye and the critic. This is interesting, and I'm going to talk specifically about Genshin Impact here, because that is the game that I would say, I would have called my time covering Genshin, at least dedicatedly, I would call that, was its own job. It's so quiet in here. It's kind of nice. Maybe I needed to disconnect from the power for a bit. Someone asked me when I was streaming Animal Crossing, and someone asked me, did you ever feel like pressure to stream Genshin or to cover it? And I said yes, for sure. Because normally in a job, if you're pressured to do something, it's like your manager who's telling you, you have this task to do and it's due by this date, and that's when you do it. But with gaming coverage, it's the audience that's your manager, but you are also your own manager. So because of my content, the way that I work, the way that I do it, gaming content is enjoyment based. So if I'm not enjoying it, I'm not making videos about it. And that is because I think that if I make videos that don't have any true sense of enjoyment, it's just going to be so transparent and it's not going to be really valuable. Would it be better for my career if I just pushed through and covered gacha games? Yes, it would, absolutely would be. But one of the things I mentioned when I was answering this question to the viewer was, I felt like, at least during certain moments, it felt like I couldn't do anything out of the ordinary or say anything out of the ordinary with the game without it being a thing. Like, my opinion couldn't just be my opinion. For example, if I didn't like a character, we don't need to call the Queen and Bella Hadid. It's not that serious. But to some people, it was that serious. And I couldn't take breaks from the game without it being a spectacle. And that felt really strange. And it still feels strange if I think about it. And I started to realize, there were times where I was playing Genshin a ton off stream or just for my own enjoyment. But I realized, these big events, I've never once experienced them without an audience or without at least thinking of an audience. And if there was ever a quest I didn't play in front of a live audience, I was playing it and I was recording it. So, processing it, it was always with this mirror of, how am I absorbing it? How do I appear while I'm absorbing it? And how do I add my own input on this thing that I'm absorbing? That is not the experience that most people have with games. When you have a game as a hobby, you don't have to have physical facial expression reactions to it. You can just enjoy it in your own mind and in your own heart. And there's no one else's opinion matters because it's personal. It's your hobby. So with this, I think the biggest thing to consider is can you maintain a strong sense of self when you're presenting your hobby out into the world, out to anyone and everyone who can criticize it? Are you able, or can you build habits to become capable of handling intense external criticism? Because it will happen. I've seen it happen on Twitter. I've seen it happen on TikTok where you might post, hey, I'm working on this thing, this crochet project, and it just gets pushed to the wrong people and people are going crazy or making fun of you. And it's okay, well, this has nothing to do with you. You're not my target audience. I'm not trying to sell to you, but you're here. But that is how the internet works. You are subject to external criticism. but that doesn't mean you have to bow down to it. So it's just something to think about. What does external criticism and what does the external eye mean for your art form, for your potential side hustle that you want to turn into a full-time hustle? Okay. Next thing, structure. Okay. When you're working in a systemized job, if you're working at a restaurant, working at an office, you have a system in place that you have to follow. You have external parameters. You have a literal person telling you what to do and telling you when to do it. You clock in, you clock out, you work from this time to this time, and then you're done. That does not exist unless you make it when you work for yourself. And particularly because this is not a novel and there are 1,000 books I'm sure that you could read about this subject. What I specifically want to talk about is how structuring and systematizing art or artistic endeavors can affect you. When art is your hobby, you can do it whenever you want. When art is your job, you have to do it whether you want to or not. And you have to do it for yourself, but you also have to do it for someone else. And that can be hard and that can be mentally confusing. And these all points, I'm realizing they all kind of meld together. This makes burning out a whole lot more complicated. This makes losing interest or waning interest much more complicated. Because when you burn out on a hobby, or you get bored of a hobby, okay, whatever. Like I was doing gel X nails for a while, but I got really into Marvel Rivals, so I can't do those long nails that I used to do. No, it doesn't matter that I stopped doing my nails. But if I was like a nail tech YouTuber and I had built a channel around it, it would be much more significant. And I have a very specific example for this. I started to learn art, like digital art mostly, and I made a YouTube series about it, and it was a rather successful YouTube series, and I ended up putting it on its own channel, and some of those videos have a lot of views. I burnt out, I lost interest, and I still haven't gotten it back. That was a big deal. That involved other people, and it had somewhat of a business aspect to it. Like, I wanted that to be secondary, but if that was my full-time thing, that's scary. That's really scary. And you're faced with the decision of like, can I push through? Like, am I capable of taking a break without it collapsing my business? Now, thankfully, with this art endeavor, that was totally a side thing. It was definitely a passion project. It did not make very much money. So it was no big deal for me to stop. I felt a little sad for the people who were watching, to let that go or to push it to the side. But I found other things. I have other ways to express myself on that particular channel. But for some of you who want to do this, if you jump to a full-time, you won't be able to afford to burn out. And you got to really think, like, can you handle that? Like, can you find the motivation from something deep inside, even when your emotions aren't following you? Or are you willing to take a risk and, be scrappy and find other ways to make an income when your heart isn't following your goals? Now, this also kind of ties into this next point, motivation. Motivation when you're making art or when you are doing your hobby. The motivation is obvious. It's for yourself. It's for fun. It's for personal betterment. But when you turn that into a job, that motivation, it convolutes. It's messy now. The motivation could be personal enjoyment, but the motivation could also be financial. It can be both. Sometimes it's more one than the other. Sometimes it's like career vitality. That's the reason. Sometimes it's good connections. Like, the answer for what is the why of why you do what you do. That answer is simple when it's your hobby. That answer complicates dramatically when you turn it into a job. So, considering all these things, all the potential difficulties, my advice to you, if this is something you're considering, number one, take your time. Really, not just think about it, like plan. You need to plan. And you need to find a way to take your emotions out of the equation to some degree. And by that, I mean, don't let your emotions be the driving force for this endeavor. Feelings are horrible leaders, but they're amazing followers. So if you are considering taking your art form, taking your hobby from a personal enjoyment endeavor to a potential side hustle or a full-time hustle, you need to accept the fact that your motivation, your purpose, your drive is changing. And it has to change because now it involves others. It's not just you. And this answer is going to be different for every person. So for me, what is my why? Thankfully, my why hasn't changed too much because I started gaming seriously and streaming at the same time. But my why is very simple. To be a place where people can rest, where people can take a load off, forget the outside world for a little bit, or even just for little moments in the midst of their day to enjoy something together with a variety of people. That goal, that is my motivation, that is my ideal. To be a sort of rest stop in a variety of people's lives. So that goal allows me to kind of remove myself from the game itself, from the intense environments that can occur around specific communities. And I can accomplish that goal at a large scale and at a small scale. I can accomplish that with high intensity, huge community games and with games that are more niche. And I can do that without games. And because I have factored the other person, the other people into my why, I know what to do when I have a burnout. Whether it be on a game, whether it be being in front of the camera. Like sometimes I love streaming, sometimes I love being on live camera. Sometimes I'm just going through stuff and I just need to not be live. Some periods I am very reflective and I feel that I'm learning a lot and I want to share that. So the YouTube videos that I put out during that time frame will be different than just like, wow, this game is awesome, yeah. But that flip-flops all the time. So I allow what I have done personally, and this is just me, there are other parameters, there are other guides for this type of decision. I have a structure, but then I have fluidity and choices within that structure that allows my career to ebb and flow with me. And personally, that is how I avoid long-term burnout, because I think there are a few decisions a few times in my career where I decided to step back. I decided to leave something because if I hadn't, and if I had just kept pushing for like what I believe to be career optimization, I would have burnt out. And I probably would have had to take a prolonged break or a permanent break from content creation. I don't want to do that. I would so much rather work at a small capacity or work for a small audience than not do anything at all. So for me in my career, for my particular field, and streamers, you can take this with a grain of salt. I put parameters on myself. I give myself tasks and output goals, but I let myself break the rules to some degree. And I think you'll find, if you're scrappy enough, if you're smart and clever, you can find pretty nifty ways to make money. You can figure it out in a pinch if you absolutely have to. And one thing me and Joshua have talked about this, taking the leap from a full-time, from a safe position to something less safe, you find it in you. Like, humans want to survive. We want to eat. We want to have security. So forcing yourself to kind of jump off from a safe platform into something a little bit more risky, it's kind of fun. And just to be clear, be careful. Okay, I'm not telling you to quit your job. I'm not telling you to quit your day job. But I am saying it's not the worst thing to risk your security a little bit for something that actually makes you happy, for something that you love. Also, when I burn out and when I really start thinking about, like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I'm cut out to be a content creator, to be in the public eye. I think about other things I could potentially do. And it's not that those things are worse or lesser. I love it. Like, I love content creation. Most of the time, if I'm not in a good place mentally, it just means that I have my priorities in the wrong order. It just means I'm doing the right thing in the wrong way, and I need to reconfigure, because I love it, and it would take a lot for me to want to give it up. So that is one thing that is wonderful. But there are many things that are wonderful. Most things are wonderful about doing something that you love for your job. There's just a few concerns to think through, and things that I wish I could tell myself in the past to prepare myself for these hurdles. One of the most wonderful things about doing what you love and turning that into your job is that love sustains. It will cause you to work harder than you've ever worked before. And you'll push through with a passion that you kind of can't muster when you're working for someone else. At least that's my experience. Nothing compares to working on something that you made with your own hands. So in my humble experience, it is worth it, but it is hard. It's hard, not the passion part, but making it into something that is sustaining and can provide an income. That part is hard, but it's not, but it's worth doing if you have it in your heart to do it. So, some homework for you if this is something you're considering. Number 1, come up with a motivation that surpasses your personal enjoyment. Come up with a mission statement for your business that extends beyond just you. Number 2, come up with a plan for burnout. If you need to take a break, if you find, because it will happen, even something that you love with your whole soul, you will need to take breaks unless you're like you gotta be a rare breed to never burn out. But everything, how you need to figure out how you're not going to have an identity crisis when you burn out on something. You gotta have a backup plan. And also think about how you might handle what your answer might be to yourself and to others when that external criticism and that external eye starts to beam down on you. Because I remember the first few times that I was criticized really, really early on in my career, my first instinct was to lash out, was to cling to anyone who would defend me. And I think my judgment was clouded by my emotions in those moments. So if you can plan ahead and really safeguard yourself from yourself, and also from the destructive criticism that you might receive, and how you might respond to constructive criticism. And if you want to do it, if you really, really want to do it, I think you should. Maybe you don't quit your job right away, but maybe you start to believe it's possible to do what you love and to turn that into your life's work. Okay, that's all I got. I finished the episode. I'm sorry that the audio turned to poop midway through, and I'm just hoping that the first part of this podcast actually records. Please tell me the file didn't get corrupted. Okay, I'm gonna go try to get my power back on. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Well, I'll see you next week on the Logging Off podcast. Bye.